The Russian Empire gradually entered the First World War during the 3 days prior to July 28, 1914. This began with Austria-Hungary's declaration of war against Serbia, which was a Russian Empire ally. The Russian Empire sent an ultimatum via St. Petersburg to Vienna, warning the Austro-Hungarian Empire not to attack their Slavic ally. Following the declaration of war, Russia began to mobilize its reserve army near their common border. Consequently, on July 31, the German leadership in Berlin demanded Russian demobilization. There was no response, which led to German declaration of war on Russia on August 1, 1914. In accordance with Schlieffen Plan, Germany disregarded Russia and moved first against France, declaring war on August 3. Germany sent its troops through Belgium to surround Paris. The threat to Belgium caused UK entry in war on Entente side. Between 1873 and 1887, Russia was allied with the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians in the League of Three Emperors. From 1887 to 1890, the Reinsurance Treaty granted an alliance between the Germans and the Russians. Both collapsed due to competing interests in the Balkans. France took advantage of this event and sought a Franco-Russian alliance, but Britain viewed Russia with suspicion due to their fast expansion in Middle Asia in 19th century. From a distance between British India and Russia of 3,000 kilometers in 1800 to a distance of only 30 kilometers in 1902. In addition, a conflict between the two powers was possible due to Russian territorial claim on Ottoman-held Bosphorus Strait, which linked the Black Sea with the British-controlled Mediterranean Sea. Britain's isolation during the Second Boer War and Russia's defeat against Japan during the Russo-Japanese War in 1905 led to both parties to seek an alliance. The Anglo-Russian Convention of 1907 settled disputes in Asia and allowed the establishment of the Triple Entente with France, which was largely informal. In 1908, Austria-Hungary annexed the former Ottoman region of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which sparked tensions between the Austrians and the Slavs. In the First Balkan War, the Ottoman dominance in that peninsula was weakened due to the Balkan League. Bulgaria was unsatisfied with its claims and attacked its neighbours, but this led to territorial losers. This defeat turned Bulgaria into a revanchist local power, which fueled a second opportunity to fulfill its national aspirations. This left Serbia as the most important Russian ally in the Balkans. Russian industrial bases and railway network had significantly improved since 1905 from a relatively low base. In 1913, the Tsar approved an increase in the Russian army of over 500,000 men. Although there was not a formal alliance between Russia and Serbia, their close bilateral links provided Russia a route into the crumbling Ottoman Empire, where Germany also had interests. Combined with Russia's military increase, both Austria-Hungary and Germany felt threatened by Serbia. When Austria invaded Serbia on July 28, 1914, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Sazonov, viewed this as a German-Austria conspiracy to end the Russian influence in the Balkans. On July 30, Russia declared a general mobilization in support of Serbia. The next day, on August 1, Germany declared war on Russia, followed by Austria-Hungary on August 6. Russia and the Entente declared war on the Ottoman Empire in November 1914 after Ottoman warships bombarded the Black Sea port. Most historians agree that, generally, Russia's top military leadership was tremendously incompetent. Tsar Nicholas II made all final decisions, but was repeatedly given conflicting advice by his peers, resulting in unsound decision-making throughout his time in power. He set up a deeply flawed organizational structure that proved useless for the high pressures and the instant demands. The government was unaware of its fatal weakness and remained out of touch with public opinion. The foreign minister, Sergei Sazonov, had to warn Nicholas that, unless he yielded to the popular demand and unsheathed the sword on Serbia's behalf, he would run the risk of revolution and the loss of its throne. The Tsar yielded, but also lost his throne. David Stevenson, a British historian, concluded, Russia's decision-making in July 1914 was more a truly tragedy of miscalculation, a policy of deterrence that failed to deter. Yet, like Germany, it too rested on the assumption that a war was possible without domestic breakdown and that it could be waged with a reasonable prospective success. Russia was more vulnerable to social upheaval than any other European powers. Its socialists were more estranged from the existing order than those elsewhere in Europe. The strike wave among the industrial workforce reached a crescendo with general stoppage in St. Petersburg in July 1914. The Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Sazonov, was not a powerful figure in the events leading up to the First World War, nor did he play a major role in Russia's decisions following their entry in World War I. According to the historian Thomas Ott, Sazonov felt too insecure to advance his position against stronger men. The Tsar tended to yield rather than to press home his own views. At the critical stage of the July crisis, Sazonov was inconsistent and showed an uncertain grasp of international reality. Serious planning for a future war was practically impossible because of the complex rivalries and priorities given to royalty. The High Command was linked to royalty rather than expertise. The General Staff had expertise but was often outweighed by the Imperial Guard. The French ambassador, Maurice Palaiolog, quickly became influential by repeatedly promising France would go to war in support of Russia, which reflected the position of Raymond Poincaré. Russia depended heavily on the French alliance, since a two-front war against Germany was winnable, but not if Russia was alone. The French ambassador, Maurice Palaiolog, hated Germany and saw that when war broke out, France and Russia had to be close allies against Germany. His approach agreed with French President Raymond Poincaré. Unconditional French support to Russia was promised in the unfolding crisis with Germany and Austria. Historians debate whether Palaiolog exceeded his instructions, but agree that he failed to inform Paris of exactly what was happening. He also forgot to mention that a Russian mobilization would lead to total war. A new factor in the Russian policy was the growth of Pan-Slavism, which identified Russia's duty on all the Slavic nations, especially those who practiced Eastern Orthodox Christianity. The growth of this policy shifted the attention away from the collapsing Ottoman Empire and focused more and more on the Habsburg monarchy after their annexation of Bosnia, causing the Sarajevo assassination of the Austrian Archduke, heir to the throne. Within the Austro-Hungarian borders, a large Slavic majority lived in the Balkans and in zones like Bohemia, Slovakia and Galicia. The Russian viewed the Habsburgs as the biggest threat to the Slavic blood and of the Pan-Slavism after their invasion of Serbia. The Tsar wanted to defend Serbia, but not to fight a war with the German Empire, who supported Austro-Hungary. Tsar Nicholas II exchanged letters with his first-grade cousin, Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was the Emperor of Germany. This exchange was named the Willy-Nicky Correspondence. Both proclaimed desires for peace, and each attempted to get other to back down. Russia mobilized troops to attack only Austria-Hungary, but would inevitably fight with the Germans. On July 25, 1914, the Tsar decided to intervene in the Austro-Serbian conflict during the July crisis, a step towards general war. He put the Russian army on alert the same day. Although it was not a general mobilization, the borders of Austria-Hungary and Germany were threatened. However, the Russian army had few workable plans and no contingency plans for a partial mobilization. On July 30, 1914, Nicholas took the fateful step of confirming the order for general mobilization, despite being very reluctant. On July 28, Austria-Hungary formally declared war against Serbia. Count Witte told the French ambassador Maurice Palaiologos that the Russian point of view considered the war to be madness, Slavic solidarity to be simply nonsense, and nothing could be hoped by war. On July 30th, when Russia declared general mobilization, still maintained that it would not attack if peace talks began. In reaction to the partial Russian mobilization ordered on July 25th, Germany also ordered mobilization of its troops as the danger of war was imminent. The Germans sent an ultimatum to St. Petersburg demanding their demobilization within 12 hours. The ultimatum expired and the German ambassador asked the Russian foreign minister 3 times if they would reconsider their military actions. He delivered the note accepting Russia's war challenge and declared war on August 1st, while on August 6, the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph I signed the declaration of war on Russia. At the outbreak of war, many European powers published color books which contained diplomatic correspondence which were cherry-picked and sought to establish justifications for their entry in the war. The First World War found Russia grossly unprepared. The Allies placed their faith in Russia and its massive army. Its regular strength before the war was of 1 point per million troops, but the general mobilization added another 3.1 million reserves. In every other aspect, however, Russia was unprepared. Germany had 10 times as much railway track per square kilometer, and Russian soldiers traveled an average of 1,290 kilometers to reach the front, while Germany needed a quarter of that distance. Russia had a massive industry, but it wasn't enough to supply all of its massive army. While the German army was better equipped, the Russians also had a small amount of artillery pieces, shells and motorized transports. The Russian High Command was greatly weakened by the mutual contempt between the War Minister and the Grand Duke Nicholas, who commanded the armies in the field. An immediate attack was ordered against the German province of East Prussia. During the Russian campaign in that region, the Battle of Tannenberg, also known as the Second Battle of Tannenberg, happened between 150,000 German troops and 230,000 Russian troops, where the Russian Second Army was annihilated, casting an ominous shadow over the empire's future. While the Austro-Hungarian and the Ottoman army were backed, they were also pushed by the Germans. An offensive was launched in Galicia and Silesia to relieve pressure from France and called for a Franco-British landing in Gallipoli. They also incited a rebellion of Armenians against the Ottoman rule, which led to a massacre. A combination of poor planning and preparation devastated the Russian morale for the entirety of the First World War. Gradually, a war of attrition set into the vast Eastern Front. The Russians were facing a large number of Austro-German forces, which pushed them back from Galicia. While retreating, a general wrote, "The German heavy artillery swept away whole lines of trenches and their defenders with them. We hardly replied. Our regiments, although completely exhausted, were beating off one attack after another by bayonet. Blood flowed unendingly, the ranks became thinner and thinner and thinner. The number of graves multiplied. In 1917, a revolution broke out which kicked the Russian Tsar from his throne, which influenced the rise of communism. With this events, Russia left the war and a civil war broke out within the country. Approximately 3 million Russians were killed in this war and many European lands were lost like Poland, the Baltics, Finland and Bessarabia.